Snow had been falling since dawn, wrapping the forest in a white silence that felt almost sacred. The wind howled through the pine trees like a wounded animal, rattling the wooden shutters of Emma's cabin. Inside, the faint glow of a dying fire painted her face in amber light. She had learned to live with silence. It was her only companion through 3 long winter sets. She'd chosen solitude over a life filled with loss. Emma moved slowly, wrapping a threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders. Her pantry was nearly empty, a few cans, some dried herbs, and half a loaf of bread. But she was used to little. The forest had taken much from her, yet it had also taught her endurance. Outside, the wind shifted suddenly, carrying with it a sound that didn't belong to nature, the faint, distant cry of someone in distress. Her heart stopped for a moment. Then came the sound of frantic barking, a horse's panicked whinny, and the unmistakable growl of wolves. Emma froze. The storm made it impossible to see more than a few feet beyond her window, but instinct pulled her to the door. She grabbed her lantern and her old rifle, heart pounding. When she stepped outside, the cold hit her like a blade. Snow swirled around her face, stinging her skin. Through the white blur, she saw a man struggling to pull a child from a fallen horse. 2 wolves circled them, their eyes glinting in the darkness. Without thinking, Emma fired into the air. The sharp crack shattered the night. The wolves vanished into the woods. "Over here," she shouted, her voice barely carried through the wind. The man lifted his head, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes wide with exhaustion. He was holding a girl no older than 10, wrapped in a torn blanket. By the time they reached the cabin, the child's lips were blue. Emma rushed to light more firewood, draping every blanket she owned around the girl. The man knelt beside her, trembling from cold and fear. "Thank you," he managed, voice rough. We lost our way." The storm came out of nowhere. Emma poured him a cup of tea, weak but warm. "You're lucky I heard you," she said softly. "No one passes through this forest in winter." He nodded, his gaze heavy with something unspoken. "My name's James. This is my daughter, Sarah." Emma smiled faintly. "I'm Emma." Outside, the storm roared louder, pressing against the cabin like a living thing. But inside, for the first time in a long while, Emma wasn't alone. As she watched the firelight flicker across James's face, something stirred within her, a fragile warmth she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know it yet, but the storm had brought her more than just strangers. It had brought her the beginning of everything she thought she'd lost. The storm had not eased by morning. The world outside the cabin was a blur of white and silence, broken only by the crackle of fire and the sound of the wind pressing against the walls. Inside, warmth slowly returned to the air. Emma sat beside Sarah, checking her breathing, while James tended to the fire, his hands trembling slightly as he added another log. "You saved our lives," he said quietly, not looking at her. His voice was rough, like someone unused to saying thank you. Emma shook her head. "You would have done the same." James gave a faint, tired smile. "Maybe, but I don't think we have made it another hour out there." For a while, neither spoke. The storm made conversation seem small, like words would be swallowed by the wind. Emma poured him another cup of weak tea. His hands, still shaking, wrapped around the tin cup as if it held something more than heat, maybe safety. Sarah stirred and blinked, her lips no longer blue. "Papa," she whispered. James knelt beside her, relief washing over his face. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe." Emma turned away for a moment, letting them have their space. Watching them brought a strange ache to her chest, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. Family. It was something she'd buried deep, along with every memory of her own loss. James looked up. "You live out here alone?" Emma nodded, her gaze fixed on the window. "For 3 winters now. That's a long time to be alone." "It's quieter that way," she said softly. "Easier, too. No one gets hurt." He studied her for a moment, as if trying to read the story behind her calm voice. But he didn't push. Instead, He simply nodded and looked back at the fire. Hours passed slowly. The storm began to fade, leaving only the soft whisper of snow falling from the roof. Jean stepped outside briefly to check on the horse, then returned covered in frost. One of them didn't make it, he said quietly, but the other's still standing. Emma lowered her eyes. I'm sorry, he shrugged. Could have been worse. For the first time, Emma noticed the faint limp in his walk, the small wince when he moved. You're hurt, she said. It's nothing. She frowned and motioned for him to sit. Let me see. When he finally relented, she knelt beside him, rolling up the torn fabric around his knee. A deep gash ran across his leg, red and swollen. She reached for her small wooden box of herbs and cloth. You patch up strangers often? He asked with a dry laugh. Emma smiled faintly. Only the lucky ones who find my door. Outside, the wind began to quiet completely, leaving the cabin wrapped in stillness. The fire burned low, and for the first time since the night began, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. As the night deepened, the forest outside grew calm, the wind fell silent, leaving behind only the soft crackle of the dying fire. The cabin felt smaller now, the air heavy with the smell of smoke and herbs. Jean sat by the hearth, his leg bandaged neatly, watching Emma as she moved quietly around the room. You're good with that, he said, nodding toward his bandage. Emma looked up. You learn a few things when the nearest town's 2 days away. He smiled faintly. Still, you've got a healer's hands. She didn't answer, only poured him another cup of tea. Her movements were careful, measured, the way people move when they've spent too long in silence. Cyril was asleep now, wrapped in a blanket by the fire. Her soft breathing filled the small space. Jean watched her with that mix of love and guilt that only a parent carries. Her mother would have known what to do, he murmured. Emma paused mid-motion. She's gone. He nodded slowly. Last spring, fever took her before we could reach a doctor. His voice cracked slightly, the kind of break that comes from trying too hard not to. For a long time, Emma said nothing. The only sound was the pop of the fire and the whisper of falling snow outside. I'm sorry, she said finally. Loss doesn't care how strong we are, does it? Jean looked at her, really looked. There was something in her tone, something that told him she knew the shape of grief all too well. You've lost someone too. Emma's eyes flickered to the fire. My husband, 4 winters ago. He went hunting and didn't come back. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was full of understanding. 2 lives scarred by the same kind of pain, now sitting together under one fragile roof. People said I should have left, she continued softly. But the forest, it felt like the only place that still remembered him. So I stayed. Jean leaned back, his eyes on the flames. I guess the storm had its reasons for bringing me here. Emma glanced at him, a hint of warmth touching her tired face. Or maybe you were just too stubborn to freeze. He laughed quietly, a rough, genuine sound that made her smile in spite of herself. Outside, the sky began to clear. Through the small window, the moonlight spilled over the snow, silver and still. Emma threw another log into the fire, then wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. You should rest, she said softly. Jean nodded, eyes already heavy. Wake me if the wolves come back. I will, she whispered. But as she sat by the fire, watching the 2 of them sleep, father and daughter, strangers yet somehow familiar, Emma felt something stir in her chest again. Something warm and frightening. Hope. When Emma opened her eyes, the world was glowing. Sunlight spilled through the frost-covered window, scattering over the wooden floor like shards of gold. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt sacred. She rose quietly, careful not to wake James or Sarah. They were still asleep by the fire, their faces calm for the first time since the night before. The warmth that had once felt far now seemed to belong here, like the cabin itself had been waiting for it. Emma stepped outside. The air was sharp and pure, the kind that burns your lungs but clears your soul. The forest was unrecognizable, Every branch, every roof beam of her small home was heavy with snow that glittered under the pale morning sun. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney. For the first time in months, she smiled. She heard footsteps behind her. Jean stepped out, pulling his coat tighter. His hair was still messy, his face marked by exhaustion. But his eyes were alive. "Looks like we made it," he said softly. Emma nodded, her breath forming clouds in the air. "The forest always looks new after a storm, like it's forgiving you for surviving." He chuckled. "Never thought I'd owe my life to a stranger in the woods." "Stranger or not," she replied, "we're both still breathing. That's what matters." They stood for a moment in comfortable silence, watching the horizon where the sun began to climb over the white hills. Somewhere in the distance, a bird cried, the first sign that the world was waking again. Jean glanced at the barn behind the cabin. "I should check on the horse, the one that made it." "I'll help," she said quickly, surprising herself. Inside the small barn, the smell of hay and damp wood filled the air. The horse snorted softly when James approached, brushing snow off its mane. Emma handed him a bucket of water she'd broken the ice from. Their hands brushed just briefly, but the contact lingered like a spark. "Thank you," he murmured. She looked away. "You can't travel far yet. The roads are buried." Jeans nodded. "We'll stay until it clears. I'll work for my keep, chop wood, fix what needs fixing." "You don't owe me anything," she said. He smiled faintly. "Then let me do it anyway." Back inside, Sarah was awake, sitting near the fire with a sleepy smile. "It's so warm here," she said. "Like Mama used to make it." Emma froze for a heartbeat, then crouched beside her. "Your Mama must have been a good woman." "She was," Sarah said softly. "Papa says she still watches us when it snows." Emma glanced at James, who stood quietly in the doorway. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, it felt as if they both understood something neither dared to say out loud. The storm had ended, but something new had begun, something fragile, like sunlight breaking through melting ice. The rest of the day unfolded slowly, like the forest itself was learning how to breathe again. Sunlight melted the icicles from the cabin roof, and the constant drip of water was the only sound for hours. James worked outside, splitting logs near the barn. His movements were steady but careful. His injured leg forced him to pace himself. Every swing of the axe sent small echoes across the quiet valley. Inside, Emma mixed herbs in a pot over the fire, humming softly to herself, a melody she hadn't remembered in years. Sarah followed her everywhere, curious and bright-eyed. "Can I help, Miss Emma?" Emma smiled. "You can stir the soup, but be gentle, it's as stubborn as your father." Sarah giggled. "Papa says the same about me." From outside came James's low laugh. "I heard that." Emma rolled her eyes, hiding a smile. For the first time, the cabin was filled not just with warmth, but with life. Laughter, a sound that had been absent for so long, now mixed with the crackle of the fire and the soft clatter of dishes. Later, when the sun dipped low and the snow began to glow pink, James came inside carrying a pile of chopped wood. "That should last us a while," he said, dropping it beside the door. Emma wiped her hands on her apron. "You're still limping." He shrugged. "You patch me up good, but I'm not made of iron." "Could have fooled me," she replied, smirking. He chuckled, then took a seat by the fire. Sarah had fallen asleep again, curled up with Emma's old quilt. For a moment, James just watched her, then glanced at Emma. She hasn't slept this peacefully since before. Emma sat across from him, the firelight dancing between them. "Children feel safety before they understand it," she said quietly. "She knows she's safe now." James nodded, eyes thoughtful. "I think I forgot what that feels like. Safety." He shook his head. "Peace." Emma looked at him for a long moment. "Maybe peace isn't something you find," she said. "Maybe it's something that finds you when you stop running." James leaned back, smiling faintly. "And here I thought I was just lucky to find a roof." She laughed softly. "Luck had nothing to do with it. The forest brought you here. The fire burned low as twilight settled around the cabin. Outside, the world was hushed and still, bathed in the gentle blue of evening. Emma stood to check the kettle. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll fix the fence by the barn. You can't leave yet, and I could use an extra pair of hands." James grinned. "Are you offering work or company?" She gave him a sideways glance. "Whichever makes you work harder." He laughed, the kind of laugh that carried warmth even through the cold night air. For the first time in years, Emma didn't dread the next sunrise. Somewhere between the firelight and laughter, something had quietly shifted. Not love, not yet, but something just as rare. Hope, reborn from the ashes of a long, lonely winter. The snow had hardened overnight, forming a crust that cracked beneath their boots. The sky was clear pale blue, and the air smelled of pine and wood smoke. Emma pulled her coat tighter as she walked toward the fence line. Jeans followed, carrying an axe and a small bundle of wooden planks he'd salvaged from behind the barn. The fence had taken a beating from the storm, half buried in snow, its posts tilted like weary soldiers. Jeans knelt beside one, testing its strength with a gloved hand. "Storm took the worst of it," he said, "but it's fixable." "Everything's fixable," Emma replied, "if you care enough to try." He gave her a small smile, the kind that never quite reached his eyes. "You talk like someone who's done a lot of fixing." "I've had practice." They worked in silence for a while, the rhythm of hammering and the crunch of boots filling the air. Emma passed him nails, her breath forming faint clouds in the cold. The sun was high enough now to warm their faces, melting small droplets from the branches above. Every so often, James winced, favoring his injured leg. Emma noticed but said nothing. She just slowed her pace slightly, matching his rhythm. After a while, he leaned on the fence post, catching his breath. "When I was a kid," he said, "my father used to make me fix things. Every time I broke a tool or tore a saddle strap, he'd say, 'If you can't mend what you ruin, you don't deserve to own it.'" Emma tilted her head. "Sounds like a hard man." "He was," Jane said with a half laugh, "but he wasn't wrong. Problem is, I've spent most of my life trying to fix things that can't be fixed." She looked at him, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Like the past." He nodded slowly. "Like myself." The wind picked up slightly, carrying the smell of smoke from the cabin chimney. Emma drove another nail into the post, her hands steady. "Maybe that's not your job anymore," she said. "Maybe you just need to build something new." James watched her, the quiet confidence in her movements, the way the light caught the edge of her braid. "You sound like you've been thinking about that for a while." Emma gave a faint smile. 3 winters give you time to think." He chuckled softly. "I guess they do." By the time they finished, the sun was dipping low again. The repaired fence stood straight and strong, cutting a clean line through the snow. Gene stepped back, wiping his brow with a glove. "That's a fine bit of work." Emma nodded, a touch of pride in her voice. "You're not bad for a man with one good leg." He laughed, the sound rich and warm against the cold air. And as they walked back toward the cabin, the fading light painted long golden shadows behind them, 2 figures moving side by side, both carrying more than the tools in their hands. By the time the last light faded, the forest had turned into a sea of silver shadows. Inside the cabin, the fire burned bright, filling the room with that soft orange glow that makes everything seem closer, more real. Emma ladled stew into 3 wooden bowls. The smell of herbs and slow-cooked meat filled the air. Sarah sat cross-legged on the floor beside the fire, brushing the mane of a small wooden horse James had carved for her earlier. The sound of her quiet humming blended with the pop and hiss of burning logs. James sat across from Emma at the small table, the flames flickering between them. "I haven't eaten this well in months," he said after the first bite. "You could run a cookhouse and make a fortune." She smiled faintly. "I'd rather keep my peace than chase a fortune." He nodded, swirling the spoon in his bowl. "Peace," he repeated softly. "I used to think it came with money." Turns out, it comes with silence and a warm fire. Emma looked at him over the rim of her cup. And good company. Their eyes met for a heartbeat too long enough for both of them to notice. She looked away first, pretending to adjust the pot. Sarah's voice broke the moment. "Papa, tell the story about the horses again." James laughed. "You've heard that one 100 times. I don't care. I like the ending." He looked at Emma, who nodded toward the fire with a small smile. "Go on," she said. "We could all use a good story." So he told it about the wild horses that broke free during a storm, and how he and Sarah's mother had chased them for miles across the open plains. His voice carried warmth and loss in equal measure. Emma watched him, imagining the scene, the sound of hooves, the vast horizon, the laughter of a woman now gone. When he finished, the room was quiet again. Sarah had fallen asleep mid-story, her small head resting on her father's arm. James brushed a strand of hair from her face, a look of tenderness softening his features. "She looks like her mother," Emma said quietly. "Every day more so," he whispered. "Sometimes it's comforting. Sometimes it hurts." Emma nodded, understanding all too well. "That's how you know they never really leave us." James looked at her, really looked. The flickering firelight caught in his eyes. And for a moment, he seemed to forget the weight he carried. "You ever get tired of being alone, Emma?" She hesitated. "Being alone's easier than losing again." He nodded slowly, the truth of it hanging heavy between them. Then, after a pause, he smiled, small, tired, but real. "Maybe it's not about choosing one or the other. Maybe it's about finding someone who makes the risk worth it." Emma laughed softly, shaking her head. "You talk like a man who's been reading poetry." He grinned. "No books where I come from. Just hard lessons and long nights." She smiled back, and this time, it wasn't the polite smile she used to hide behind. It was real, bright, and alive. The morning broke gray and heavy, clouds hanging low over the trees. The storm hadn't returned, but something in the air felt colder, sharper. Even the birds were silent. Emma was tending the fire when she heard it, the distant echo of hooves. Slow at first, then clearer, steady, deliberate. She froze, her hand still on the kettle. James stepped out from the back room, his expression shifting as he caught the sound. "Expecting someone?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "No one knows I'm here." But the way he said it, low and guarded, told her there was more behind those words. Moments later, 2 riders appeared through the tree line, dark figures against the snow. They wore heavy coats, their horses steaming in the cold. Emma's stomach tightened. Strangers meant trouble more often than not in these parts. James moved toward the door, his limp slowing him, but his stance still protective. "Stay inside," he murmured. "I can take care of myself," she replied, voice steady. The riders pulled up near the fence they'd fixed just the day before. One of them, a tall man with a trimmed beard, raised a gloved hand in greeting. James hollered. James's jaw tightened. "Depends who's asking." The man dismounted. "Name's Carver. I work for the Whitmore Ranch, your ranch." Last I heard, his tone carried a mix of respect and confusion. "We've been looking for you. Folks thought you were dead." Emma glanced sharply at James. "Your ranch?" James exhaled slowly, as if the weight of a secret had finally caught him. "I told you I own land," he said quietly. "I didn't tell you how much." Carver continued. "Your foreman's been running things since you disappeared. There's talk in town they want to sell. Said you lost your nerve after your wife passed." The silence that followed was heavy. Emma looked at James, and for the first time, saw not the quiet man who mended her fence, but the weary air of something far larger. "I didn't lose my nerve," James said finally, his voice firm. "I just forgot what it was all for." Carver studied him, then glanced toward Emma. "You plan on coming back, boss? Folks are starting to lose faith." James hesitated, then nodded. "I'll come, soon." Carver tipped his hat. "We'll be waiting." He mounted up again, and within minutes, the 2 riders vanished into the trees. their silhouettes swallowed by white. Emma stood in the doorway, arms crossed. So, that's the truth. Jeans met her eyes. I never lied. I just didn't think it mattered here. She looked away, her voice quiet but sharp. Everything matters when people trust you, Jeans. Outside, the snow began to fall again, thin, hesitant flakes drifting through the air like the first whispers of a storm yet to come. The fire burned low, its last embers casting long, trembling shadows across the walls. Outside, the world was quiet again, too quiet. Emma sat by the table, her hands wrapped around a mug gone cold, while James stood near the window, staring into the snow as if it held answers. Neither had spoken since the riders left. Finally, she broke the silence. You're not just some ranch hand passing through the woods. James turned, his expression weary. No, I'm not. So all this time, the man I took in, the one who said he had nothing, turns out to own half the valley. Her voice wasn't angry, not really. It was something worse, disappointed. I didn't come here to hide who I was, he said quietly. I came because I didn't want to be who I was anymore. Emma's eyes softened, but her tone stayed firm. You could have told me. He moved closer, the floor creaking under his boots. Would it have changed how you saw me? She hesitated. The question hung heavy between them. Maybe not, she admitted, but I would have known who I was opening my door to. Jean sighed and sat opposite her. The firelight painted deep lines across his face, the kind that come from years of grief and guilt. When my wife died, everything on that ranch turned to dust. Money, land, men, none of it mattered. I thought if I could disappear, maybe the pain would too. Emma looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. Pain doesn't vanish when you run. It just waits for you to stop. He smiled faintly, sad but real. You sound like you've learned that the hard way. I have. The wind outside picked up, rattling the shutters. For a long time, they sat in silence, both staring into the flickering fire, the only witness to everything unsaid between them. Then James spoke again, softer now. Carver's right. They'll sell the ranch if I don't return soon. But the thought of going back feels like walking into someone else's life. Emma's fingers traced the rim of her cup. Maybe that life's waiting for you to make it your own again. He studied her face, searching for something, forgiveness, maybe, or courage. And what about you? If I go back? She looked up, meeting his gaze. Then go. Don't stay because you think you owe me something. I don't, he said. But he stopped himself. The words were there on the edge of his tongue, but fear kept them locked away. Emma rose, turning toward the window. The snowfall had thickened, flakes swirling softly under the moonlight. Storms coming back, she murmured. James stood behind her, his voice quiet, almost pleading. Maybe this time, we face it together. She didn't answer right away. Just watched the snow drift past the glass, fragile, relentless, beautiful. Then she said, almost to herself, together's a dangerous word. James hollered. He stepped closer, close enough for the warmth of his presence to reach her, but not close enough to touch. So, is alone. The fire crackled. A single spark rose and vanished into the smoke. The snow had fallen all night, wrapping the forest in silence. When Emma opened the door that morning, the world looked untouched, as if yesterday's troubles had been buried under a blanket of white. But not everything could be covered so easily. James was already outside, loading the small sled with what few belongings he had. His movements were steady, deliberate, and painfully quiet. Sarah stood nearby, her wool cloak pulled up to her chin. Papa, she said softly, are we leaving? James paused, resting a hand on her shoulder. Not yet, he said, but soon. Emma watched from the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. You're really going back? He turned to face her, snowflakes melting in his hair. It's my land, my people. I can't keep running from it. She nodded, but her expression didn't soften. And what about what you found here? His gaze lingered on her for a long moment. The cabin, the smoke curling from the chimney, the life that had somehow grown between them. That's the part I'm not ready to leave. Emma stepped outside, boots crunching in the snow. Then don't. Jean smiled faintly, sadness flickering behind it. You know I have to. You always have a choice, she said quietly. He looked at her, really looked. Do I? Because if I stay, I'm a coward running from duty. And if I go, I'm a fool walking away from the only peace I've known. Emma's breath clouded between them. Maybe peace isn't a place, James. Maybe it's a person. He took a slow step closer. The air between them felt charged, alive. Then tell me to stay, he said, voice barely more than a whisper. Emma's heart pounded, but she couldn't speak. The words burned on her tongue. But something, fear, pride, love, kept them there. Instead, she said softly, you'll do what's right. You always do. He nodded, jaw tightening. I'll leave tomorrow. The snow will ease by then. Sarah tugged at his sleeve. Will Miss Emma come with us? James looked at Emma, waiting. She glanced at the forest, the cabin, the memories carved into every board and stone. This is my home, she said finally. Sarah's face fell. But you could have a new one. Emma knelt and brushed a strand of hair from the girl's cheek. Homes aren't built from wood and nails, sweetheart. They're built from people who stay. Sarah nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the weight of it all the same. James turned away, his breath trembling. Then I guess this is goodbye, he said. But Emma didn't answer. She just looked at him standing there in the snow. The man who had arrived at her door half-dead, and who now looked more alive than ever, and for the first time in years. She didn't know what hurt more, the silence, or the thought of losing it. The wind rose, carrying the faint cry of a distant hawk. The day stretched before them, white and endless, like the road waiting to be chosen. By dawn, the sled was ready. The storm had cleared, leaving the sky pale and endless. The forest shimmered under a thin mist, every branch heavy with snow. James stood beside the horse, tightening the straps, his breath rising in slow white clouds. Emma watched from the doorway, the same doorway where she had once found him half frozen and bleeding. Now he stood tall, steady, the man he had been before grief hollowed him out. Sarah climbed onto the sled, clutching her small wooden horse, the one Emma had mended for her. I'll miss you, Miss Emma, she said, her voice small in the morning stillness. Emma managed a smile. And I'll miss you, sweetheart. Be brave for your father. I will. James met Emma's gaze one last time. There was so much he wanted to say, things that didn't fit into words. Gratitude, regret, love. Thank you, he said finally, for saving us. Emma shook her head gently. You saved yourselves. I just opened the door. He smiled faintly, that quiet, broken smile she had learned to read like a story. Goodbye, Emma. She stood there as the sled began to move, the sound of hooves muffled by snow. They passed the fence they had fixed together, the line of it cutting across the white hills like a promise. Then the forest swallowed them whole. For a long time, Emma stayed where she was, her hands trembling against the frame of the door. The cabin was too quiet again, too still. She stirred the fire, though it didn't need it, and sat by the window, staring at the empty road. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, melting small crystals from the roof, the drops falling like ticking seconds. She told herself she'd done the right thing, that letting go was strength, not loss. Then, faintly, she heard it, the sound of hooves. At first, she thought it was just the wind playing tricks. But then it came again, closer, faster. Emma stood, heart racing. Outside, through the drifting snow, a lone rider appeared. James. His coat was dusted white, his hat pulled low, but there was no mistaking him. He rode hard until he reached the cabin and stopped just a few feet away. Emma stepped out, the cold biting her cheeks. What are you doing? She called. He dismounted, breathless. I tried to keep going, he said, his voice raw. But every mile felt wrong. Every step away from here felt like leaving something behind I wasn't ready to lose. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She didn't fight this time. And what about your ranch? He smiled, small, steady, certain. A man can have land, gold, and 100 fences. But none of it means a damn thing if there's no one to come home to. For a moment, neither of them moved. Snow fell softly between them, catching in their hair, glowing in the pale light. Then Emma took a single step forward. You came back. Jeans nodded. If you'll have me. She smiled, slow, trembling, but real. I never asked you to leave.